Good evening, wherever you may be. I'm your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known, sorry about that, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. So happy day to you. It's 12:21 in the AM time on the eastern seaboard of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But anyway, so welcome to those of you who may stop by here and watch this video. Now, a little bit of history. Many years ago, I probably read one of these reports about plastic in the water. A good friend of mine who's now been deceased a couple of years worked in the filtration system um, all over the world for like 40 years. And he knew how to clean water. So he told me many moons ago. This was like in the early 2000s. He said they're finding um, nanoparticles in the plastic bottles. They're finding it in the water and drinking water. And I've talked about this over the years, and I believe people think I'm just crazy, which is true, because I couldn't find the information. I just remembered that he had said something, and I remembered that there was a report out or something. So most folks just like, well, big deal. I'm going to drink out of these plastic bottles anyway. And I kept saying, the plastic bottles haven't had enough time to off gas, so part of the issue with plastic bottles is not the water, it's not the plastic in itself, but the plastic right after it's made has still got some off gassing it needs to do. And what they're finding is that it off gases into the water. And I've talked about this years ago. So I had quit talking kind of sort of about it. I have mentioned it over the years, but as far as a theme, because people just go, yeah, psst, yeah, psst, where's your information, right? Okay. So, but for myself, that was weird. Did you just see that up? Well, never mind. That was weird. So there are nanoparticles, nano-sized particles, which mean they're really tiny, small, and that they've been found in drinking water. Okay, so it's the off-gassing of the plastic that deposits these tiny little plastic particles into the water. You can't see them because they're nano-sized. All right, so what's that got to do with the price of tea in China? The price in tea in China, it says this new report that has just come out, a new study finds that nanoplastics are even more common than microplastics in bottled water. Now, I'm watching the Jimmy Dore show, okay? So, I can't play it because I'm afraid that, might get a strike or something. But I would encourage you to go over to the Jimmy Dore show on YouTube And the title of their video is "There's Even More Plastic in Your Body Than Thought." So, how about that? So, I'm going to read the report like this gentleman reads the report, and let you go and find it out for yourself. But there have been quite a few people who have like, Dave, so what's the big deal, Hawkeye? Well, I quit drinking water out of plastic bottles a bunch of years ago. And I used to have arthritis real bad. My knuckles would swell up. Now I'm 71 right now, but my knuckles would swell up, and I couldn't squeeze my hands, and it was just horrible. So I made up my mind this is over 20 years ago now. Well, no, it was about 2003. So it has been 20 years. So 20 years ago, I decided to not drink as much as possible, mind you, out of water out of plastic bottles. In fact, I decided to stop drinking sodas out of plastic bottles. And the only thing that I still really drink out of plastic, and it's a different type of plastic, even though there's still stuff in it, is milk in a gallon jug. The larger the volume in the container. So if you've got a tall, skinny bottle of water with not a lot of water in it, there's going to be more particles in the water because of the volume of water per plastic. So the amount of plastic for a gallon jug, and that plastic spread out over more volume of the liquid. So anyway, let me go on with this. I can't remember this gentleman's name. So here's what's the new, a new paper released on Monday in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found about 240,000 particles in the average liter of bottled water, most of which are nanoplastics. Particles measuring less than 1 micrometer, less than 1/7 the width of a human hair. For the past several years, scientists have been looking for microplastics, or pieces of plastic, that range from 1 micrometer to half a centimeter in length, and found them almost everywhere. It's not just in the water. Okay. Now I'm reading this off of over the shoulder of this guy on the Jimmy Dore show. And so they're having comment and everything. I think it says the Washington Post that he's reading this from. The tiny shards of plastic have been uncovered in the deepest depths of the ocean, in the frigid recesses of the Antarctic sea ice, and in the human, I don't have one, but in the human placenta. They spill out of laundry machines and hide in soils and in wildlife. These are the nanoparticles, the nanoplastics. Microplastics are also in the food we eat and the water we drink. In 2018, scientists discovered that a single bottle of water contained, on average, 325 pieces of microplastics. And you might say, well, Dave, you're talking about a microplastic. But here's the thing. I'm scrolling through the article here. But researchers at Columbia University have now identified the extent to which nanoplastics also pose a threat. Whatever microplastic is doing to human health, I will say nanoplastics are going to be more dangerous, said Wee Min, a chemistry professor at Columbia and one of the authors of this new paper. The new study found pieces of PET, polyethylene terephthalate, which is what most plastic bottles are made of, and polyamide, a type of plastic that is present in water filters. How about that one? The researchers hypothesized that this means plastic is getting into the water, both from the bottom bottles themselves and from the filtration devices and processes. Ain't that nice? So you're trying to get your water clean, and you've got doesn't say which those water filters or which plastic water filters are what those plastic water filters are. Let's see. Just that, there are plastics used in a lot of stuff. So it might be that there are plastics that are used in the wine. In other words, they put a lot of the filtration system together, squeezing whatever material it is that they're using for the filter. And sometimes they use plastic, believe it or not, as a filter. Those folks who are on kidney dialysis, a lot of the filter are plastic bags, basically, because plastic bags are porous. Depends on the type and how thick the plastic is and so forth. But that's what filters out bad particles from the blood from millions of people every day. So you say, well, so what is all of this? What does all of this mean? Plastic is getting into the water both from the bottle and from the filtration process. So I don't know what filtration process they're using. That plastics, nanoparticles, nanoplastics are getting into the water from the filtration. So researchers don't yet know how dangerous tiny plastics are for human health. Well, I can tell you, because 20 years ago, I quit drinking water and sodas out of plastic. Okay. I've used very little plastics anymore in what I drink. And my arthritis, I'm 71, my arthritis is pretty much gone. But my knuckles would swell up. I would wake up in the middle of the night, crying, tears, so forth. And I just want to let you know that the studies that they have done previously, I don't have the information, And this, I guess, is from the Washington Post again, that the information came out. But this is on the Jimmy Dore show, to give them credit. Because I'm on my cell phone here, I can't post the link. So sorry about that. And I'm reading over this guy's shoulder. So, in a large review published in 2019, the World Health Organization, WHO, said there wasn't enough firm evidence linking microplastics in water to human health, but described an urgent, get this, but described an urgent need for further research. Okay, so if there wasn't enough firm information, then why do they want urgent need for further research? You know what I mean? So if it wasn't important, me, myself, and I, for the last 20 years, limiting my whatever I drink from out of from not being in plastic bottles or whatever, glass bottles, tins, aluminum cans mostly. But this idea, though, that I know some other folks who drink a lot of water out of plastic containers. And when my dear friend Marcia, who's passed away now 3 years ago now, and here next month, she drank everything was out of a plastic bottle, and her fingers were and knuckles and joints were so swelled up all the time. And I kept telling her, I said, honey, listen, you got good well water. Why are you drinking it out of plastic bottles? She'd buy at least a case of plastic bottles per week, just herself. And she was like, well, it's just convenient. I can go over there and get one, and I can carry it. And I'm like, okay. But she could barely move her hands before she passed away. And she was a year younger than me. But anyway, but with that said, though, I know a couple of other folks who have stopped drinking out of plastic bottles, and they have seen similar results themselves. So do we have any empirical, well, here's the thing. My hands work at 71. My hands work better now than they did at 61, at 10 years ago, because the arthritis was so bad. And I was drinking so many things out of plastic bottles. And so, but since I have stopped that and I have changed my behavioral pattern in that, I don't have I got a little bit of arthritis, but it's been 10 years later and I'm actually in better shape with my hands and other things like that. So I'm all for, telling people, listen, limit what you drink out of plastic containers. So in a large review published in 2019, the World Health Organization, the WHO folks, said right, I just read that, I'm sorry, but said there wasn't enough firm evidence linking microplastics in water to human health, okay? But described an urgent need for further research. So that bothers me right there, that they urged further research. It's okay, keep drinking, in theory, nanoplastics are small enough to make it into a person's blood, liver, and brain, okay? And nanoplastics are likely to appear in much larger quantities than microplastics, okay? There are two different types, nanoplastics and microplastics. So the research says there are more nanoplastics than microplastics. In the new research, 90% of the plastic particles found in the sample were nanoplastics, and only 10% were the larger microplastics. Ooh. Now you say, well, Hawkeye, what does that mean? It means that there are more of the smaller particles, which means the smaller particles are easier to get into your body. Okay. And the reports that I read, not in this one, but in another study back a couple of years ago, was that it was very difficult once you get these nanoplastics into your body. They are real difficult to get out. Now, why is that, you would say? They're plastic. There's nothing that naturally goes after plastics in the body. How do you expel things? Well, it's a foreign object, yeah, but it's plastic. It's just, it's there's nothing that really attacks it. So once you get these things into your body, you're stuck. Okay. Jim Corolla, a spokeswoman, Jill, sorry, a spokeswoman for the International Bottled Water Association, said in an email that there is both a lack of standardized methods and no scientific consensus on the potential health impacts of nano and microplastic particles. Now, she's in charge of the National Bottled Association, bottled water. And you say, well, wait a minute, well, what's she speaking up for? Because if do you know how bad that would be for business? If people said, well, wait a minute, you mean there's all these little nanoparticles floating around in the water? They're floating around in all of the liquids. It ain't just the water, you know. So here's what she says is there is both a lack of standardized methods, in other words, how to check it, and no scientific consensus. In other words, doctors and folks can't agree on the potential health impacts of nano and microplastic particles. All right. Hey, Robert V. Yep, we got tomorrow, right? Tomorrow at 10, same time, same bat channel. Good to see you, Robert V. Go back to bed. We'll see you tomorrow. Actually, I guess it's later on today, ain't it? So anyway, this Jill lady, she's talking about, which is true, we can't get everybody all hyped up and everything. Well, but the plastic bottles, yeah, but they've been talking about plastic bottles now for a while, okay? 2018, 2019, they did studies. So they have been watching this for a while, just saying. So, therefore, media reports about these particles in drinking water do nothing more than unnecessarily scare consumers. Now, I can tell you myself, as a couple of other people that I know, one or two of them, come and sit in the chat here sometimes, but I'm not going to name drop them. But they have agreed that they've stopped using plastic drinking bottles as well. Hey, Miss Chloe. So, I know that when I stopped drinking water out of bottle and other drinks out of plastic as much as I was doing, that my arthritis started going away. And my kidney issues sort of dropped down, but my old age has kind of sort of brought my kidney issues back up. But I'm still doing all right. I don't need a kidney or anything, and my disease is being cared for, and I got to go to the doctor in March or April. March, I think. But anyway, for a checkup with my kidneys. But so me and the folks who have stopped using plastics can verify that our joints are better, and our arthritis is better. So, but there are no reports that state it. Now, there are reports in other places and stuff where these nanoplastics and microplastics have been getting into everything. They've been finding plastics in everything, okay? But that they've gotten into frog embryos, and they have, there have been gay frogs, and frog with both sexes kind of thing. And the decline of a sperm in some certain species. Also, it has been logged in that men of male, supposedly men, have there has been a significant drop in sperm count in males in the last however many years they've been testing. So, but here's the thing, if these nanoparticles can change, animals, frogs, for example, in nature to hermaphrodites with both sexes, and also to change them into, frogs that love to wear dresses, one must think with all the plastics and so forth that's being consumed in all the drinks and so forth, could this possibly mean be a reason why there are so many men and women who are having issues with sexual orientation? They don't know who and what they are, and they're creating things. And it's like, so one would say, well, wait a minute, these micro, macro, mini plastics in our not just drinking water, remind you, and drinking stuff. Good night, Robert. See you tomorrow. Be safe. Stay warm. And that wait a minute, there are no studies. Okay. But you can look at the populace. You can look at society and go, wait a minute, all these people are drinking out of, and we've got an issue with, hormonal changes within the population of the planet, you know, and there are signs that those who don't drink from plastics are more normal, if you will. Okay. So it's like this article here, it says, therefore, media reports about these particles in drinking water do nothing more than unnecessarily scare consumers. Now, I would say this lady, of course, she's trying to promote people to drink bottled water. Not to say that you shouldn't, or that, but that maybe they should be saying, for the general health of the populace, that don't get all of your drinking water sources from these plastic bottles. Get drinking water from other sources. Continue to use our products and we have the finest water ever. But remember that you should spread your drinking vessels around. Hey, Hook, yeah, glass is better. I have stainless steel for my glasses and so forth. They used to drink out of, plastic. Everything was plastic, ceramic too. But because I'm by myself here in my older age, my stainless steel lined cup is my cup of choice. Stainless steel is easy to clean, and but anyway. So to stick with the subject, um, so I think that consumers, could criticize some of these folks about not repeating it. You know, I don't know how much more I'm scanning through this. Like I said, this I'm reading over this guy's shoulder on Jimmy Dore's show. Oh, I think that was all. Now I'm sure that there is more to the report. That's all. That's all that they were reporting on. Okay. So, but for those of you who've been around me long enough, I have been arguing and bitching and complaining and talking about, the off gas and the plastics into especially liquids, you know, and because liquids get sloshed around where, um, if something's being transported from the local bottling company to the stores, them bottles are sloshing around. So they're mixing up them little nanoparticles really good from the plastic that's freshly made, at just before it's filled full of your favorite beverage, or maybe not your favorite, but anyway. Cheers. So yeah, if I buy something from the store to drink from, I'm gonna drink it out of a glass bottle, or if I can, or an aluminum at least. So it's like, well, it's just amazing, that for years now, there are a few of us who have been trying to warn other folks, hey, listen, if you don't stop drinking out of plastic, at least slow down. My friend was drinking between 6 and 8 bottles of water per day, not counting other things in plastic. But she was getting the 12 ounce, so however much that was, I got to drink 2 gallons of water a day, and she was putting them down. But other drinks and so forth, sodies, sody pops. But so what does this mean? My arthritis is better. I know. I'm not going back to drinking out of plastics again. Not unless they glass is broken, and you know, I can't get anything to. But nope, sorry about that. I'm not going to go back to doing that. Now here recently, I've been buying 1 gallon jug of water, clean water. Then when I found out about some other things, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to go ahead and use the water. Now that we've had all this rain, my well water is up. Looked down in the hole the other day, last week, and the water's up. So I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to run out of water, or if my water is low and that there might be too much crumb in them. I know that there's too much clay on the bottom of my well because it pumps. I pump it out, right? I pump it into my sink. My sink has this sort of reddish tint to it, this earthy color, and it's from having too much clay in my water. But clay is a natural uh, sponge, in that it has been known to take out um, bad minerals and so forth and things out of our system. The old timers down here in South Georgia, and also in Alabama too. I'm that my story is also part of that, has part to do with Selma, Alabama, and finding this white clay while I was traveling through there, and I was like, "What is this stuff here?" And they were like, "Well, that's clay, son." And I was like, "Yeah, but what do you do? What do you do with it?" And these two black women behind the counter look at each other and they, "Well, son, we know you're white, but you eats it." And I was like, "Oh, okay," you know. And I said, "So how much for this little baggie of clay?" And she told me, I was like, "Holy crap. I need to dig a hole just to get the clay out." you know. Oh my God, I'm sitting on a gold mine here. Clay mine, actually. But that, legally, I can sell these little baggies of clay and it's perfectly legal. Well, the bottom of my well ain't nothing but that white clay. So the water in my well is entrained with these fine particles of clay. Well, I would much rather have them fine particles of clay than fine particles of nanoplastics. Before they were microplastics and now they're nano. In other words, they've gotten smaller. So, however these scientists are looking at it literally with electron microscopes and so forth, and they're getting test samples wherever they're getting them. And, but one of the things that, the article says is they're finding these nanoplastics in everything, in the earth, in the food we eat. They're finding these nanos in everything. Okay. And that's because with all the years of peoples, not just Americans, but let's pick on Americans more at the moment because we've been throwing stuff out the car window for a long time, where other folks around the world didn't have the same amount of access to those things that we did. They've got plastic in Mexico, but not to the extent that we do. We're putting out plastic bottles that you go Mexico, they're putting them out, but not in the same volume. Okay, especially per capita of folks. So things are different in other countries. So America, America, and oh, by the way, Trump won the caucus. DeSantis DeSantis came in, last I heard, was 22%. Hey, Geraldine. Hi, how are you? Big hug to you, sweetie. Hope you're staying warm. I hope all y'all are staying warm. I know it's colder than it's a balmy 48 degrees outside here, but it's going to be like 28 tomorrow. So, you know, it's a coming. But so these nanoparticles, and it was stated years ago when they first found the island of plastic in the Pacific. Hey, Michelle, was hoping you were doing well. Sent prayers your way earlier this. It was right after lunch. It might have been just before lunch for you. Oh, you're getting a sore throat? Oh, that's a shame. A little bit of honey and lemon juice, kind of, the honey's good for you unless you got diabetes. Nate just threw up. Oh, holy crap in a bag. I was hoping that he was holding them kind of things down. But so nanoplastics, those things have been getting into people's brains. There was all these things about aluminum over the years. And have watched several people, friends of mine, relatives who got old timers disease and literally started losing their mind. And it's a horrible thing to watch somebody just kind of slide down over there on the side, especially people who are really smart and intelligent. They're smart, and then there's intelligent. But when you get them both, that's a thumbs up. But so with these nano things, they were complaining years ago that there was just too much plastic in the ecosystem. They were finding plastic particles, little nano thingies, in the Gulf of Mexico. The shrimp industry was really, in the state of Louisiana, was really worried about it because they were like, these things are so small that the shrimp are eating them. And if the shrimp are eating these little nanoparticles, thinking that it's food because it sticks to things. So here are these shrimp eating these little nanoparticles, probably more like the particles, simply because they're bigger, but they're munching on them, thinking that they're food, and they're not. They're inert. So then they eat them, thinking they're food, and then they are filled with these little nanoparticles, plastics, and then we eat the shrimp, and there you go. So, but they've been concerned about these nanoplastics in the ecosystem, maybe, since at least 2015, 2010. It goes back further. What really kind of boosted what's in the water was when, the Horizon thingy went and busted that pipe in the Gulf of Mexico and spewed all that wonderful oil all over the Gulf of Mexico. Because then people started paying attention to the water, right? They're cleaning it up. Then they put all that Corexit on top of the ocean, and the Corexit is a type of, it doesn't really absorb it, but what it'll do, it dropped the oil off of the surface down so deep into the ocean, so you couldn't see it. The oil was still there, but it was being churned around inside the Gulf of Mexico like a big wash machine that's on slow. But they've been monitoring the Gulf of Mexico since the Deepwater Horizon thingy, especially since then. There are folks that I knew that are on the Gulf of Mexico, down around, just south of Tallahassee. They've got the University of Florida, and also Florida State, and also the University of Florida out of Gainesville in Florida. They do a lot of study there along the coast. And for Tallahassee, it's an hour's drive down to Panacea. And so some folks have been studying the horseshoe crab and so forth down there for 40 years now and been doing other things. So they've been keeping an eye on what's in the water. And when they started finding all these plastics, all these tiny little pieces of plastic in the water that the marine life was munching on like plankton because they were so small, and it was like, ooh, what's that floating by in the water? So then we eat these critters, some of them. The fish, they're breathing the water in and out and in and out and in and out, right? It gets stuck in their gills. They absorb, if it's small enough to get in our bloodstream, you can dang sure bet it can get into a fish and frogs. And so some of these malformations that have been seen in the natural world with frogs with, two sexes and thing and stuff. And, when the frog went a courting, he did go, honey, frog went a courting, he did go, baby. He took his dress and a ukulele and went courting down to the old crawdad hole. It ain't like, never mind. So what's been going on with things in nature have been unnatural. What has been happening with women, young girls with too much hormone? What about guys that ain't got enough testosterone? No wonder these guys ain't guys anymore. They ain't got enough testosterone. So what's happened? Well, old farts like me, we've decided to, drink out of glass containers and make changes in our lifestyle. Plus, we're already over the teenage stage ourselves, but these younger folk are just going through their puberty. You know what I mean? And they're already filled because their lifestyles have been such that, you know, in their first 10 years of life, they've consumed so many nanoplastics that it ain't even funny. I quit, ingesting nanoplastics as much as possible for the last 20 years. So my body has recovered, sort of, in that my arthritis has gone down. I wish you could have seen me 10 years ago when with my knuckles all swelled up and everything. It was horrible. And the pain was just, it was nasty. And now I don't have that anymore. What did I do differently? I stopped drinking water and beverages as much as possible out of plastic containers. -2 here in the UK. Oh man, just woke up. And to wake the kids up, but listening. Be good. Make me feel cold. It's so nice here, as far as the temperature. It's, kind of sort of a normal evening, morning in South Georgia. The temperatures aren't too. Oh, it says it's 54, but I know that's a lie. Well, it could be 54. Temperature varies around, low spots have a tendency to be a little colder. But so anyway, but I think folks should speak up more about these nanoplastics in stuff. Now, if they're already in all kinds of stuff without being in a plastic bottle, and they're already in our foods, they're already in our other stuff, well, then wait a minute. So if somebody's lifestyle is such to where they're drinking out of plastic bottles abnormally much, So I know the bottled water industry wants to make a profit. They want to sell their product. But if they were the ones who started saying, you know what, we've used a different type of bottle, or they should look into it maybe, and that we want to warn people to get water from other sources, not just from plastics. If whatever company would stand up and have the cojones to say, listen, we have done some research, we've heard from some folks, and we just want to tell you as a public service to our customers, please be responsible. It's sort of like the, Anheuser-Busch doing, don't drive drunk commercials. Well, wait a minute. You want to sell beer to the last minute, last call for alcohol. Yeah, but wait a minute, yeah, but you don't want to kill your customers. So you tell them to drink responsibly. So they're still drinking. They're still drinking your product, maybe. So for those folks who would say that, oh, we don't want to panic the public, I think somebody ought to stand up and show a little bit of, you know what? There's been several, now this ain't the first report that's come out, okay? This is the latest report, okay? This is the latest report. Scientist, chemist from Columbia's University. Maybe we should not drink as much out of these certain types of plastics. Maybe there are certain types of these plastics, as some of us know and are aware of, that off-gas more than others. Maybe there's something within the process of making the bottle. It's plastic. It comes out of the mold. It's off-gassing immediately, but you don't want it to go into the liquid. Maybe you rinse them out first or something. Maybe there's something that can be done to the bottle after it's been made to rinse it or something that might reduce the amount of, particulates of this. But instead of saying, well, we don't want to, set a panic up within the community, and we don't want to lose money in our sales because people are going to be worried about these tiny little nanoparticles, possibly. No. They done a study. They're all over the place. Yeah, but maybe not in our water. Our water doesn't have any nanoparticulates. You want to bet, So it may be that the water companies, the bottled water companies, will do their own test and say, our bottles, we have fewer nanoparticulates in our water than all of these other brands. So, and then you bring awareness to, wait a minute, there's nanoparticles in the water? Yeah. There's nanoparticles in all kinds of stuff. And we're not exactly sure, but we're pretty certain because they're so small and can get in our bloodstream. They can get stuck in all the little blood vessels in our brain. I got a heart condition, or some of them little sons of beehives stuck into my heart some way. Are nanoplastics part of the reason why I got to hearken to. I mean, why do I have kidney? You know, wait a minute. It would bring up a lot of other stuff. Young folks that are ailing of things that our generation of folks, if you found one sick person with some of this stuff within 1,000 kids our age, you were lucky or unlucky, depending on what you're looking at. But nowadays, there are folks who, there are people with certain diseases within younger age groups that just did not exist in our time frame, in us baby boomers. And we were exposed to all kinds of stuff. You know, they let us play outside, you know, without gloves on or without, you know, they made us stay outside, you know. So, but wait a minute. So are these younger folk, because they're, you know, oh, have drink out of this plastic bottle here. Oh, drink out of this. Oh, you know, and not knowing how much stuff is actually in the foods we eat because nobody's really looking. But at least in the water industry, they're looking because water is pretty much don't got too much in it. So it's easy to check, right? Easier to check. But so as these chemists, now you know they're putting their life on the line when they speak up about this stuff. But for those of us who paid attention 20 years ago and even earlier about how many of these nanoparticulates was in the in the ecosystem, I have seen a 90% decline in amphibians in my backyard in the swamp, which is barely a swamp anymore because of lack of rain. But down on the Ochlockonee River, and I live on the Little Ochlockonee River in South Georgia. But as I get things straightened out with myself, I'm going to be doing a movie, um, the the death of a river, and it has to do with how much wildlife ain't here no more. Many of you have heard me talk about it over the years about how there's just, you know, there are certain things that just aren't on the river anymore. The birds are gone and the frogs are gone and the turtle population is down and just, you know, all of these things. And then, you know, and I've got my own issues with, uh, with what the chicken farms are doing to the water around here, mostly uh, killing the oxygen. But that once there was the die off of the main critters, love you too, Chloe. Once there was the first big die off of all the reptiles and the frogs and stuff, there just haven't been any frogs or anything to replace them. Nobody's paying attention to the Ochlockonee River. That's just, well, you know, well, the fishing ain't as good as it used to be. Well, that's because there are no frogs. That's because there's no this. There are no minnows. There are no, you know, there are the only thing that's in the river anymore are these are gar. I want to call them alligator gar, but I understand they may not. Hey, Mark, how are you? Yeah, I got one right here. Yep. So lens all 20 if you want. But so you know, for those of you who have known me for a while, I've been talking about this for years, you know, years. But in my old age, I was thinking about it today. I had to cut another tree down at the top of the driveway. And I cut it down and I cut it up, almost all of it, with my new steel battery powered chainsaw. And it's all cut up out there in the yard. Now it's too green. But I cut it up and brought it down here to the house because if I start running low with firewood, even though the wood is green, I can toss a couple of green pieces in there and help extend my dryer wood. But anyway, missed you by an hour. Good thing you're long-winded. Oh, shut up. I love you, Mark. Thank you. I am long-winded. And so the Jimmy Dore show this is where I got it from. There's even more plastic in your body than thought is the name of their video. It's 9 minutes and 7 seconds. Oh, darling, do you have any kaopectate? If not, you should get some. I swear by this stuff. I swear by it. And I can't do Pepto-Bismol, but if somebody's been throwing up, diarrhea, and upset stomach, kaopectate. It's the best. When I had my little bout 2 weeks ago or whatever, the only thing that finally started, calming my stomach down. So in listening to the Jimmy Dore show, and I didn't play their segment, but I was reading over his shoulder what was, I guess it was in the Washington Post. But the fact that Columbia University, that it was published and that it's the recent reports out and so forth, that's for y'all to pay attention to. For me, I want to go nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Told y'all. Told you. Told you. Now, they ain't saying what exactly, because they're saying there's not enough evidence. Well, look around you. That the girls that want to be boys and the boys who act like girls, and they're more girly than the girls, and you want to know, well, there's no evidence. Look around, you dumbass, pay attention, you dumbass. Right, Mark? The answer is staring at you, But anyway, so something that I wanted to did you know about kaopectate? He's asleep. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm thinking kaopectate, and I was like, come on, stomach, calm down. I was just thinking of the pink stuff. That I can't do Pepto-Bismol, but that's that kaopectate stuff right there. And there's a long history of it, but kaolin is a type of clay, by the way. and I have clay in the bottom of my well that is similar to the kaolin, but not the same, but close. They're both white clays, and they're both, there's a chain of clay under, most of the time, under the red clay. Hey, Katniss, here in South Georgia, that runs all the way to North Florida, right to the, I mean, literally, there are open pit mines there that you can see on Google Earth, out of Pulgus, Georgia. And I always thought it was up north, but no, it's like south of me, almost right on the line. And they mine this kaolin out of the earth. And near here, in Ocklackney, they mine the white clay. It is Fuller's earth, and they super dry it, crush it up, and it turns into kitty litter. I mean, I'm serious. So the bottom of my well, if I were to mine that clay, and you got to superheat it and dry it like snot. Well, maybe not like snot, but you got to really dry it out. That it becomes very, very, very absorbent. So that's what the clay does. It's the absorbency of the clay. All right. So you want something that'll calm your stomach down. The old timers around here eat clay, literally, just munch it down. It's in my well water, so I don't eat it. But if my stomach is upset, I will have kaopectate versus that pink stuff, because it makes me want to throw up, just the smell of it. But what's in the kaopectate is in the clay thingy versus a bismuth. And it's, so, but if you're anywhere near some really good clay, you know, you have ginger candy. Yeah, that's good. Honestly, that's good. Um, I still vote. Oh, are you poking at me? I hope so, because I forgot about that. And I told you, I said, the next time we're on here, let me know. Now, maybe you forgot, or maybe you're doing it on purpose. I don't know. But about the MetaSuite, I thank you so much. Oh, it's so easy for me to get distracted. It's so easy for me to get distracted. I mean, I'm, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, I'm on my, I'm a cleavers too. Yeah, I know. God dog it. You know what? I got a new diary book. I need to write it in there. Hang on before I put this down and forget about it. Yep, a little baking soda goes a long way. I agree with you, Mark. But if your stomach is sour, I mean really sour, not just a little upset, but sour. I have found that because of what the clay does, it absorbs anything that's in there that's sour. Okay. Cleavers, I got me this new little book. Oh, there it is. There's the front of it. Pocket, it says Pocket Sketchbook. Now, it's so damn small. Sketchbook? So I thought it was on sale, but it really wasn't. Um, It's got a perfume smell to it. That's weird. So I bought it for like just doing notes and sort of like a diary, dowry. But my Colquitt County here, let me come back. Let me get off the front page. Meadow. For sour stomachs. Meadow sweet. Well, I stuck for the first hour. I stuck with the topic. So, hey, Miss Pearl. Um, and so, this might be, it's 1:11 into the second hour here. Cleavers. Boy, this smells perfumey. That's an L, Dave. That looks like an H. Lymphatic cleansing. Thank you. I wrote it down this time. And I still haven't had the opportunity to look at that PDF file that you sent me in the email. Um, I have been, like today, I went and cut firewood. So, and then I was watching firewood and listening to a podcast, and should have been, paying attention. But then I ran across, this thing about the plastic. And I was like, no, there are times when things come to me, right? And I was like, how long have I been bitching about plastics, and the off gas and now, they have found these nanoplastics in the food and in the stuff. I mean, it's so small it can get absorbed by the plants now, where before the plants were just kind of growing around it. In fact, one of the interesting things, I thought about this the other day. I was watching something or listening or maybe just daydreaming, or all of the above. But they were talking about birds and nests and stuff like that. And I was remembering back not too long ago that along the fence line over here was this, I seen what looked like a yellow bag in the tree line. And I was like, what's that yellow doing in the tree line, and in the bushes there? So I was like, how did it get in the bushes? And so then I go over to the bushes to look, and a bird has stripped a yellow Dollar General bag into strips. I don't know how, but had torn the plastic into strips and had lined the inside of the nest with the plastic strips, the yellow plastic strips. So I thought to myself, if I'm in the wild, I'm going to cover myself in plastic because it will retain body heat. I mean, literally, if you can't think of it, if you've got plastic, if you've got plastic bags, stuff your clothes on the inside of your clothes with plastic bags because it will act as an insulator. Not a really good one, but at the same time, the plastic will retain your body heat. I was watching a guy who was talking about survival. You need a good piece of plastic, just clear, regular plastic, nothing special, and one um, survival blanket, the crinkly silver looking thing, and and a piece of string. And he puts a string between two trees, and he put the plastic over it. And on the inside, he put the space blanket and just a little lean-to. So on the back side, he put the space blanket with plastic, and then on the front side was the quote window. And so he had a fire burning outside, and there was enough heat coming through the front of the plastic without burning it, and without having the fire inside his little lean-to there. That the temperature, he had a little thermometer, and he goes, "It's 104 in here," and the fire's over there, and here's this little survival hut, and you can do this too with just these couple of items. And I was like, right on, buddy. Of all those survival things that I've seen, that one was like really, I mean, there are other ones that are good too, but talk about just pulling a couple of things together. Here's a piece of plastic. Here's a $2. You've been hearing me talk about how valuable those emergency blankets are. Have several of them around you. But if you don't have those, at least have some plastic, and the plastic garbage bags. So, but the animals have found out how um, valuable the plastic is. They're lining their dens and their nest with it because they found out that it can keep you warm. That it makes good bedding material. There are a couple of plastic bags around. Well, go get them instead of trying to collect a bunch of leaves and twigs and stuff to make a nest with for your youngins. No, just take a plastic bag down there and shred it up, and then all your little youngins that you've just hatched or laid has got a nice place for them that they're going to be warm. You know, problem is, like little tiny little whatevers that are born, they're laying around in this stuff, and they're kind of licking it and munching on it. And so they are collecting, because it's in their nest, these nanoparticulates of the plastics, you know, just because. But it's amazing how many critters I've seen, mostly birds. Okay. I did see some like down on the edge of a hole. I'm not sure what was nesting in there. Mostly armadillos, but I can't imagine why an armadillo would want a plastic bag. But maybe, you know, if I see an armadillo take a plastic bag down in a hole, I'll let you know. I got several armadillos around here. One has been digging holes this deep in the dang yard out there, especially after that rain we had the other day. So me and the armadillos, not happy with them. My gun is loaded over there, and I've been trying to figure out how to not let Duggar get out, but get outside with my gun to shoot the damn thing. Because I mean, I went out there yesterday, and the yard, it looks like somebody came in here with a plow and plowed up my yard out here. And it was one night, one armadillo, son of a biscuit eater. But anyway, I digress. But in this world of stuff, people have been talking to me over the years about, well, Dave, you know, you've been collecting rainwater. Yeah. You've been drinking it? Yeah. Well, ain't you worried that you're going to get nanoparticles or whatever in your rainwater? Sort of. Well, how come you ain't afraid of it? Because them nanoparticles are all over me. They're all over the ground. They're all over the trees. They're all over everything. You know, there was them airplanes. Oh my God, the amount of chemtrails in the sky today. Holy crap. I mean, it was all over the place. But not staying still, moving from west to east. So, the Okefenokee swamp got a bunch of it. But so we're getting bombarded with this stuff. I think Pearl mentioned it the other day, or somebody did. That we're getting sprayed with this stuff. Yeah, we are. And do we know what it's doing to us? No. And they got to be really small particulates in order, for it to really affect us. Got to be small, little T90 little pieces, right? So must be because they're finding these things in our environment. So why would I be worrying about what little bit might get into my water when there's so many plastic particles floating around everywhere in water and other products and things, in vegetables, in the plants themselves? And wait a minute, you're worried about whether or not unless you want to eat the armadillo. I've had armadillo before, Miss Pearl, and it tastes sort of like a hog, pig. We didn't know it back then when we gutted the thing, that you had to be careful with certain glands, and we tainted the meat. And as much as it tried to be good, it was tender and so forth. Um, if I was starving, I'd put that sucker on a fire. And now the Seminole Indians threw the armadillo right on the fire. Didn't try to shell it, clean it, or nothing like that, because they nasty. Oh, they stink. Yeah, I missed the second half of that. But it's like hog meat. It really is. Don't kill it. Well, what am I going to do with this armadillo? I mean, it looks like somebody bombed my front yard, and I can't walk through it because some of these holes that he dug are so deep literally fall in, and it's dangerous for me and other folks too. But in one night, turned my look like their bombs went off in my yard, and there's all this dirt. Of course, I want to kill it. You should see Duggar go after him. Holy crap in a bag. There are not too many things. I mean, I would let a rattlesnake go, but this armadillo's done pissed me off. There's all kinds of places he could go. I've got 18 acres this armadillo could go live on. but it lives in my front yard. No, 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 no. No, no, sorry. You know, have tried to chase him off. Duggar's tried to chase him off. Duggar has chased him off, but he comes back. So, and I got rid of some of them years ago. Uh, they were in a, they dig holes and live in the ground, you know. Yeah, cheeky armadillo, you bet your butt. But, you know, it's like, move out, please. But no, you got to live right here at my house. There's all this other places you can go on my property. I don't care about the, but you're going to dig potholes in my yard in one night, you know, because for the fun of it, you know, well, they're looking for food, but that's, you know, that's like you cheeky bastards. You cheeky bastards. You dig all these holes, you know, in my yard. And then you expect me not to be mad, you know. No, 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 no. You know, damn it. and I'm the, and I end up being the dumbass, you see, because the armadillo gets away with it. You understand? So armadillo 10, human 30, vinegar and cayenne pepper in the holes. But the thing is, sweetie, actually there is, Katniss, an armadillo card. Actually, um, uh, Miss Pearl, they don't go back to the same hole. They dig the hole while they're there, and if they don't find the grub worm or whatever it is that what they digging for, then they go over there and dig. That's why there are holes all over the place. Supposedly, they got lousy hearing. You can sneak up on an armadillo easy, and their eyesight is really poor because they look at their. A lot of times their nose is literally in the ground, but they're looking for grubs and stuff, that kind of thing, um, in the dirt. So supposedly they can smell them or sense them or something. But if they are so good at sensing them, then how come they got to dig a hole this deep? You know, I mean, it's one thing like scratch around on top, but no, but they're disrupting the, you know, they're leaving holes in the ground, you know, literally they're leaving holes in the ground. There's 20 holes in the ground in one night, you know. So, so putting vinegar and cayenne pepper in the holes after the fact, they don't care because they're going to dig new holes because they didn't find anything in the hole that they dug. That's why they went and dug another one. Make sense? So, but yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you know, if I'm outside, I'll pee in, especially in the bigger holes. But they don't come back. But I, you know, we've had armadillos for ever since I've lived here. So, but um, yeah, I think there's an armadillo card. I'm pretty sure, Katniss. That's right. You got a deck, don't you? So, but anyway, it's one thing to put up with an armadillo who digs a den and can get into stuff, but it's another thing to wake up in the morning and you walk outside and you fall into an armadillo hole. You know, that's, you know, man, that's out of there. But anyway, it is what it is. Armor all my boundaries, teach me my shields, reflect all the hurt, so I will not yield. Yep, armadillo. And in certain circles, it would be armadillo because of the double L's. Armadillo. Americans would say armadillo, but Spanish would say armadillo because of the double L. The armadillo. What? Armadillo. You mean the armadillo? No, armadillo. You know, we're the dumbasses. Armadillo. Just saying. My first cigarette in a while. It is almost 2:00 in the morning, and I have smoked 5 cigarettes since this time yesterday. Actually, it was early this morning. Yeah, just for fun. If you and a bunch of folks just want to, chasing armadillos, get your 5-gallon bucket and chase them and try to catch one in a 5-gallon bucket, chase it back and forth across the yard. In my younger days, that was fun. Telling you to defend and to find your space. I did, but in order to defend my spot, I'm gonna have to kill that some bitch. Oh, that sounds bad, Yeah, I'm gonna defend my rights. That some bitch. Every morning I wait, and this is true, especially here recently since we've had some rain. Wake up every morning and there are new holes in the yard. So I wish Duggar, because Duggar's had a hold of his head. It's really hard to grab a hold of an armadillo. You know, but he has chased him across the yard over there, 300 feet to the fence, and and then you see him run around. It's funny watching Duggar chase that some bitch. I mean, it's like, woo, get him, boy, And every once in a while, that armadillo will slow down and Duggar will catch up with him and get a hold of it just between his head and his shell. And he'll get a hold of him and just shake the hell out of him. But, good Duggar, good boy. If he was to do that to one of the cats would be dead. But, we've got 6 cats and he doesn't do that to him anymore. So, Duggar has learned some lessons, but turn him loose on a possum or an armadillo, he knows what's good and what's bad. Take him over to Rob's and he don't chase the chickens anymore. He doesn't chase their cats anymore. Duggar's turned out to be he's always been a good dog, but a dog on a farm that doesn't chase chickens or the farm animals, that's a good dog. And knows the difference, between a possum and an armadillo and a chicken. Go up to the chicken and and sniff of it, but you chase the armadillo and the possum, or the fox or whatever else might be out there. But so Duggar, without necessarily being taught, has learned it. And that makes him, he's always been kind of smart, but maybe not necessarily book smart, but my dog would chase a leaf. Duggar did that today now. He went out and got a pine cone and was like going to bring it in the house. And I was like, what are you doing? There's all kinds of stuff all over the floor that's Duggar's toys, He's going to bring in a pine cone and chew it all up on the floor. I don't think so. And he looked at me with a pine cone in his mouth like, come on, Daddy, why not? I was like, You want the pine cone? You stay out here with the pine cone. But no, you ain't bringing the pine cone in the house. He brings sticks in and stuff. And, I was walking across the floor and I don't look down too much all the time. I'm more worried about being stable, right? So I step on something. I'm like, what the hell? And I look down and he has brought in a stick, just a stick. It's a pine stick, I think, but you know, he brings it, there's this piece of stick this long that he has chewed on, and it's got a sharp edge, and I just happened to step right down on that some gun, and I'm like, Duggar, you know. But so anyway, but Duggar's a good dog. He really is. A cat brings worms and frogs as well as birds. Really? Now my cats all stay outside and they drag up stuff along the house. It just I don't even go I don't even try to go look anymore. One thing I really don't like them doing is they eat the lizards. And then the lizards are really good about eating bugs. And so are frogs and stuff too, but the lizards get around and they go hunting. Well, the frogs just kind of sit there and wait. So I've gotten onto a couple of my if I see my cats are hunting for lizards, not for baby kitties beginning in March. Yeah, there hasn't been too much caterwauling going on. I think I, I don't I'm not going to say anything. I've only had out of the several kittens that were born over the last couple of years, only one has survived. And folks are like, Dave, you're so mean. I'm like, you don't understand. I had 20 cats here at one time. Well, what are you going to do with all those cats? And they started running off, they started disappearing, they started getting eaten by the hawks. And I was like, dear Jesus, oh, you need to take them to the Humane Society. And I was like, what? So if somebody doesn't get them because they're farm animals and they've never been in a cage or a house or anything like that, you want me to catch them and take them they're going to euthanize them. Well, if I'm going to do that, I'll just let the hawks have them. The hawks need food too. Whoa, that's so cruel. Yeah, but you want me to take them to the pound and let them kill them? you know. So there's one cat that has survived this 2 years old now. The others are all older than that. And fingers crossed that I don't have any more kitties. I think Mama Kitty's about had it with making kitties. Not that she can't or won't or but whatever. But last year when I went to see about this one kitten and I was like, what? And she was stuck between a couple of logs out here. And Mama had just dropped her off and I didn't even know that she'd had a kitten. And so I went out and I try not to intervene. Just, if they make it up to the doorway and they start eating out of the kitty bowl, then they've made it. But had made it up to the house and was almost to, you know, and then the kitten just disappeared. I mean, just was there one evening, went out, and the next afternoon went outside just a few hours later and it's gone. No trace, no nothing, gone. And I looked up at the sky and I said, I don't know who you are that's coming and getting my kittens, but thank you. Because there's six of them, not counting some other strays in my yard. So it's not like I don't like cats or that I'm mean to them, but I had 20 of them, you know. but they were all outside cats, but I had 20 of them. You couldn't walk in the yard without stepping in cat manure. It was horrible. So, anyway, to swing back to the topic of discussion, um, because it really is an important topic for me. Having seen the depopulation of the Ochlockonee River and of the Little Ochlockonee River because of pollutants and things and environmental changes, it saddens my heart. It downright pisses me off. you know, that's 201 here, ain't it? Right? So I got enough in here. I'm gonna fill this up and 20 with you till the 20, and then I'm gonna let you go because I got stuff to do tomorrow. Also, tomorrow is my live stream with Robert, and I've got a. I'll probably do a live stream after the show tomorrow night. For some reason, I've got some kind of thing on this cell phone, and I've reached so many gig of data, and it says I'm still live streaming, y'all still here, so I'm. I don't know what it means. I'm going to have to find out, because after I got this new phone, I was like, "What the hell's?" Some of this stuff I'm not familiar with. To think that I used to be one of the people that folks would come to before cell phones. Dave, how do you fix this? Dave, what do you do with your computer? Dave, how do you do? Because I had to know how to operate AutoCAD in 3D long before folks even knew. Most folks they hear about AutoCAD now, and they've got some really nice programs that are freebies out there. But I went back to school to learn 3D AutoCAD, and that's what I got my associate degree in. My eldest daughter British Cross has British Cross, Maine Coon. What in the dickens is that, Geraldine? Every time I say your name, I all I can do is hear Dolly Parton. Geraldine, 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 Geraldine. And I know it's Jolene, it's not Geraldine. But it just, please don't take my man just because you can. Northamptonshire. I have heard of that. God, I would love to go to the UK and spend a month and just ride around, drive around, and otherwise just look at the sights. Her name is Pauline. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, that works. Pauline, Pauline. Yep, I could see that works. Ain't there some kind of kingly castle, something in Kent? Catch up with me or keep up with me, one or the other, or don't. Um, there's a few of them in Kent, huh? I just, have uh, was watching something the other day, for example, about the Vikings and how they came over and how they they came across the UK and did this and that, and then all of a sudden the Vikings just sort of disappeared. They just disappeared. Where'd the Vikings go? Nobody really knows. Just kind of sort of disappeared. But they were talking about how the different places and whatever, and how the Vikings had been hired as mercenaries, you know. No offense, but I like Geraldine better than Deanna. And I don't even know you. You have Viking descendants? Cool beans. And that's sort of what happened to the Vikings, in my humble opinion, having watched a bunch over the last, I don't know, 15 years, ever since, you know, Netflix and the internet came out, and, you know, and I could, you know, be bored and like, look, well, let me check on about these Vikings here, you know, and how they fought amongst themselves, you know, to be king of the world. And then when they went to other parts of the world, they found out they weren't king, you know, which was an interesting thing. And I think that finally they found out that, you know, they were so far north and so isolated because that's where they lived, that when they found out that there was a rest of the world, and that, yeah, they were some tough and ornery sons of bitches, but that they weren't the only ornery and tough sons of bitches, you know? Not to be rude about it, but you know that, you know, then there were Romans that came in, and there were you know, folks from you know, different other areas, that the Vikings had, the Scots, for example, you know, you know, there's some tough son. You know, if you can wear a kilt and get away with it, you a tough son bitch. I don't care who you are, you know. Um, but so this idea though that I think the Vikings, you know, is ornery and tough, and they were smart too. I mean, you know, there have been there's more evidence, and there's more people talking about the evidence, which um, that I think that is great, is that, you know, the Vikings, they went over to, you know, to England, to the UK, they were up here, they went all the way around to Ireland, and they went over to Iceland and to Greenland, and oh, lo and behold, you know, there were Vikings in Canada and in North America. What? Yeah, so where it used to be a hard sell, I would say, where people were like, no, them Vikings didn't do all that, to where now people are going, you know, the Vikings, they went all the way around. Now, the people watching the show, I can't vouch for how they feel about the information. But when you got, you know, 500,000 views, if you were pissing people off about the information, like, oh, them Vikings didn't do all that, uh, you know, there's enough information out there about the Vikings. Yeah, more Russian DNA. I don't know why, but I would love to go to Russia. And not a clue why. Not a clue. Just, I think it's the people and how they talk about the motherland, or more than they do the fatherland. But you know, the Germans were all about the fatherland, and the Russians are about the motherland, and so that they have something, a connection to the land, is why I want to go. I want to talk with folks that have this connection, you know, with their country. You know, oh, you know, there are Americans around here, and so yeah, I know, but I don't know. There's just been something about over the watching the Russians over, you know, specials from World War II and this and that and stuff and what they went through. You know, Americans didn't go through that. You know, the Russian Revolution and all this stuff. You know, as a peoples and as a society, they have suffered. Talk about the Jews. Talk about how they suffered. Holy crap! The Russian Jews suffered. Holy Jesus! But anyway, you know, Americans should have had to suffer so much. You know, Hungarian. So my DNA results. Bit of surprise. Yeah, I was born out of wedlock too. I was in 6 foster homes in the first 3 years. And thank you, Jesus and the Creator, that I was adopted by my uncle. But yeah, I know about that adoption thing. Oh, Geraldine, born out of wedlock. The picture is a stamp my dad sent from Germany. I got it packed and I just want some. 20. So here's the thing about the report. It's always good to see you, Katniss, and you too, Geraldine. Oh no, Michelle. So as this report has come out, that they are finding these nano plastic particulates. Okay. Yes, I'm still on that same subject. They're finding it in everything. All right. So, but, wait. They're finding it in everything. But I could see, for example, if you were in India and if you see the conditions of the folks in India and how close they are and they're recycling things and there's a lot of stuff in the roads and streets and villages and same thing with certain places in China and Thailand and certain places, you know. So certain places in America, you know. But as far as most of those folks in those areas of the world don't have the income to buy plastic bottles worth of stuff. Okay. In America, little kids have got enough money to go to the store and buy a bottle of something. If Granny don't have some water in her pantry or something, you know. So getting a hold of of plastic here in America is a lot different than being able to get a hold of plastics, not necessarily Europe, but in other parts of the world. Yes, they have bottled water. Yes, there are plastics and drinks and stuff like that. That's true. But America just has a propensity of them. So, what about the outback in Australia? Do they have, cases and cases of plastic bottles, or is when it floods here in the back, plastic floats up literally in the yard. Plastic floats up. What wasn't there yesterday will be there today. The water comes up, and upstream, somebody has thrown a bottle out from one of the bridges or something, and it floats down and ends up in my backyard at some point. Now, sometimes it only passes through my backyard, but anything that was thrown out and put into the river is going to cross my property, and Ricky and Sheila's too, you know, because they're upstream from me. So it's going to go past their house and then come past my place as it's going to the Gulf of Mexico, because we're upstream from all those things. So, you know, a plastic bottle, you know, that's dumped out up here to the top of the watershed, rains, it floods, it goes, it does, it, the water takes it in places, and it hangs out a little ways in the swamp, and then and the water goes down and it sits, and then it floods again, and it goes on downriver some more. I mean, that's the that is the way of life of plastic bottles and stuff. Uh, don't ever drink water from a plastic bottle that's been sitting in the sun. That too, but don't ever drink water from a plastic bottle, is what the new results are saying. By the way, Katniss, because you missed the first part of that. But anyway, so if you want to hear what the Columbia scientists, chemists say, watch the beginning of this video where I read about it. But anyway, um, but so in the river in the backyard and from around here, so what's in my river ends up downriver into the bigger Clockney River. So, which is, you know, 15 miles south of me, where the little Clockney joins the bigger Clockney. So, you know, when it's flooding and everything, you just, all kinds of trash and stuff goes downriver. You know, have watched it, have taken pictures of it. And, you know, now that I got my new outboard motor and I'm working on stuff, I'm going to make a movie about how not only the plastics, especially now that I know more about the plastics and how the plastics in the last 15, 20 years has, you know, there's more of it in the environment, that helps explain a lot. It's not, and I'm not blaming the chicken farmers for the decline of the wildlife on the river, although they've helped. The EPA knew about it. They've been testing this area, and it's the practices of how they dispose of the chicken waste that is at fault. And there are ways around it. I think they can fix it, but I don't think that anybody. And I've talked about this before, but I'm promoting, and I'm promoting from my brain too. I'm promoting the death of the river, and the movie that I'm fixing to make. Because I need to put some video together that I've already taken, and I need to go take some more. And now that I'm going to be in a shown up motorboat that's going to be stable and I can take video, I hopefully I'm going to be able to do a decent documentary about the river. So we'll see. I'm going to make it one way or the other, unless I die first. So, you know, it's a project, it's an adventure. And so while I'm adventuring and fishing, I'm going to be taking videotape and observations and so forth. So, anyway. Ooh, it's 2:20. Right on the nose. I lit up just in time. So, what can we as a populace do? We as a populace can be aware that there are these nanoparticulates, obviously in bottled water, okay? Specifically in bottled water. It's not someplace else, over here, over there. Specifically, the tests that they conducted were on bottled water. Okay. So you can say, well, when they say, but it's in everything else, I would ask you the question, do you need to know how many parts per billion, million, thousands, or whatever of these nanoparticulates that are in everything? It's like, what? But it's such a broad statement that I can understand it, because with all of the landfills and so forth, if you've ever been to a landfill, there's plastics and all kinds of stuff, right? And so the fact that sunlight will break down a plastic bag in a couple of years, a plastic Walmart bag or Dollar General bag or whatever, the plastic bags will just literally crumble. But it doesn't mean that the plastic's gone. That's the whole reason why they started studying water and these nanobite pieces of plastic, tiny little things. Well, why? Well, because they were finding out that even though you pick up a plastic bag and it turns to dust, that dust is the nanoparticles. That's that's the stuff that won't go away. You can break the bond between the polymers, okay? But the polymers don't go away, okay? Think of them as tiny little BBs. And these tiny little BBs been holding together really good, right? That's what makes them kind of stretchy, plastic, and resilient. But now because sunlight has literally broken the bonds between these little plastic BBs. And if you could look at it close up, they would look a lot like little BBs, because I've worked in plastic extrusion, okay? And when you get the plastic that looks like BBs, and that goes in the machine, and you heat up the BBs and it turns into plastic, and you make sheets of stuff or whatever with it, or mold it. But the thing is that they're tiny, they're BBs, So, but these BBs are held together until the sunlight breaks them up and breaks them apart. It breaks the bond between the BBs. But the BBs are still there. The little tiny plastic BBs. All right. So they float around in the water. They float around in the seawater. That's where they found some of this stuff. It was like, well, wait a minute. There are plastics, and it had to do with the big floating island of plastics and other stuff, and plastics they were finding floating in the rivers and things. That those plastics that had disintegrated into the water is where they were finding these microparticulates of the plastic, because the plastic was gone from eyesight, but it was still there in the environment. So now that they're really checking stuff, there are these tiny little plastic BBs of, these polymers all over the place. They're in our foods, they're in the thing, they're in our, what? Now, here's something. I'm curious as to whether or not any of those could come out of the sky. Now, I'm going to bring this up as just a what if scenario. So, what if, I'm down here at the bottom end of the hill. What if there's a plastic bag that's up on the road? Now, I'm thinking more of like, okay, you're out west and you got a 10,000 foot mountain, you got an 8,000 foot mountain. Okay, maybe you're in the Appalachian and you got a 6,000 foot mountain, which is more common or easier, 4, 5, 6,000 foot, mountains. So you got plastic bags that are left by people up there. So the plastic bag gets hung somewhere in the wilderness, the wind blew it up there. And that now, it could have been further down the mountain, but this plastic bag, and you've seen how, the wind can carry stuff. So, but here's this plastic bag, got caught on a tree, stayed there. A bird used part of it for its nest. And then the sun came along and over a 2-year period turned this plastic into dust, into nanoparticulates. Okay. So now up on a hilltop, click, 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 down through the chimney comes good Saint Nick. But anyway, so, but now that there are plastic bags that are up on mountains that have been collected or whatever that have disintegrated over time. Okay. So, and now these particulates can go downstream really easy because they're nanos. So water comes along, picks them up because they kind of float, and off and down the stream they go and become a part of the whole ecosystem. Now, how many plastic bags does it take before there are these nanoparticulates all over the place? So, but just in thinking about the plastic themselves, that the fact that there's been so many plastics since the 50s, okay, the last 71 years, I was born in 52, as many of my other, uh, you know, uh, water dragons, were born. This is the year of the blue dragon coming up, I understand, a wood dragon. I think Miss Pearl said something about it too, but it's was looking at a thing and it's a blue dragon. But anyway, so here's plastic from not just plastic bags, but from all kinds of stuff. All right. So here's a plastic bottle that is been out in the wilderness. Somebody chunked it out on a four-wheeler and left it out somewhere. And it's been, the sunshine's been after it and after it and after it. It's still a plastic bottle, but the sun has been after it. And you could tell that it's an old plastic bottle. And that so it's been wind blown and this and that and the other thing. And so there have been nanoparticulates that have come off of these plastic, whatever type of plastic it is, that has the wind has literally, because they're tiny, have the wind has literally blown these particulates into our atmosphere. Into Hey Steve, how are you? Is Molly okay, Steve? Anytime you show up, you ain't late. So even for folks who might listen to this at a later time, you're never too late. But this information about, the particulates. So, having this conversation is like, well, we'll get to the point, Dave, Hawkeye, you know. Well, my point is that we've been polluting, we've been polluting America. And I'm going to, I can't speak about other places because I haven't been to other places. Now, I've been to some places in Canada, and it depends on the population density. But so in the summertime, there's just plastic kind of floating around, and it's doing its thing. And it's not that, people are trying to be pigs, which they are. But, stuff just gets away, you know, and there's a plastic bag floating around. And by the sunlight, it disintegrates the plastic, and tiny little particles are getting into the system. There are plastic bags everywhere. Okay. They don't have to necessarily be out in nature. They could be in our house, they could be around our yard, they could be the thing is that so many things are off gassing these tiny little nanoparticles, these tiny little beads of plastic. They get smaller and smaller, but they don't go away. So you say, well, plastic, we take the only way they go away is if you burn them. That's the only way. You can wad them up, you can crush them, you can do all kinds of stuff. But until you burn the plastic and physically change its chemical composition, well, how are you going to do that, Dave? Burn it, you know. So so there are so many landfills that leach things out. And if you're talking about plastic that's getting so, it's not even micro anymore, it's nanoparticles, okay? The other particles were a little tough to get in you. Now these nanoparticles can get in your bloodstream, can get in your brain, can get in you, well, I think it was Max. I'm not sure, somebody else. We have talked about um, not drinking out of plastic, and how I myself, about how my arthritis is so much better. So, and the issue, I think, like my friend Marcia, she was overweight, but she had cellulite, some kind of stuff that would not come out of her system. And I think it was some of these plasticines that literally bonded with her cellulite, because there was nothing she could do that would get rid of these fat deposits in her. She exercised, she ate correctly, and these fat deposits would not go away. And I think it was because she had so much plastic in her that it had bonded with the cellulite, because her knuckles were swelled up huge, and her hands were always hurting her, and but that's having watched her over 40 years, and our diet, my diet, her diet, she's a vegetarian, I'm on and off, but in watching what she drank, what I ate, what she ate, kind of thing, over the years, um, she shouldn't have been like that. You know, it should not have been like that for her, but it was. So, all I can say is I have been watching through observation. Of course, if you're going to watch, you're going to be watching. If you're going to be observing. But anyway, that was sort of a redundant statement there. Of course, I'm watching, so I'm observing. I'm observing while I'm watching. Anyway, so of many people that I've known over the years, I was 255 pounds when I stopped and lost weight. Other folks who, I'm thinking of my brother, he's actually my cousin. Um, and that him trying to lose weight was much more difficult. Drinks a lot out of plastic. Everything is out of plastic. And I mean a lot out of plastic. He is just, but so um, his issue with, arthritis, his issue with his weight, not being able to keep it off and so forth, I think could very well be related to his overuse of plastics and with drinking things. So I don't know. I can't prove it. It's my assumption, but he lived here for years and we ate many of the same things and drank many of the same things. And now that he's moved away and he's not here where there's, clay in the water, he's gone back to certain things. And the older he's gotten, his body is treating these things differently. And also, I think he's accumulated these polymers, which now that they're nano sized, oh, holy crap. So buyer beware. Is safe drinking water. Well, how safe is it? If you drink it in moderation, probably okay. And I say that because I drink water out of bottles at times in moderation. And I don't have arthritis like I used to did. So that's how I can prove it to myself and to push that onto you. I would suggest try it. If you're having arthritic issues, if you look around, if you're drinking too much out of a plastic bottle, especially water, then read the latest report. I read it at the beginning of this video, but Jimmy Dore show today had that as their thing, and they had it up on the screen. And I think the article was from the Washington Post. So for those of you who came in late, those are references and not necessarily links, because I can't do links with the cell phone. But that you can go out there and find out more for yourself, because I'm telling you that they even said that filtration systems can be adding to the problem of the nanoparticles of plastic and water, because plastics are used in some filtration systems. So, and I've known folks in the medical field, and they said that some of the filters for dialysis machines have to do with using a certain type of plastic bag that is porous. So you're trying to help a kidney patient, and you hook them up to dialysis, but the machine that is providing the dialysis is probably, because of what I've heard of how the machines are, and there are these bags and the blood goes through and it gets squished in the machine and it gets pumped in and it comes back out. Anyway, that folks on dialysis are probably getting a crap load of nanoparticles, because the blood is literally being squished through the membranes, plastic membranes, in these filters for their blood. So they're picking up these little nanoparticulates, because the process of the filtration is going to force these little nanoparticles off of the plastic bags. It's going to get into the blood, and then there you go. So it's like, oh my God. But water filtration systems. Now, they didn't specify what kind or who, or, but one should scratch your head and go, what water filtration systems may be putting plastic in the water? Well, I bought this filter. Yeah, but, well, I've got these whole house filters where they're made with fiber. And I have two separate filters. And so one I use with, has a carbon filter on it. It's the whole house filters, right? And, but is there plastic in that? Maybe at some point in there to hold to hold the charcoal together in the filter, and it's finely wrapped. I'm not sure. I have taken some of them apart over the years, but I have not seen. Uh, we need more prayers sent. And boy, especially to stay for folks to stay warm. Lord have mercy. I know the last week I was kind of blasting folks. Look, you ain't seen cold yet. And now this week, folks are getting hammered. But maybe they'll shut up about, well, we thought it was cold before. Be careful what you bitch about. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to keep my eye out for filter stuff that may be put nanoparticles in the water from a filter. That would just, it might be certain filtration types or something, but the fact that they're finding nanoparticles from using a filter is interesting. And just goes to show you, when you think you got it solved, you go, wait a minute, where did this plastic come from? Well, this water came out of that filter right over there. Really? Put some more water through that filter. Some bitch. Do that again. Run some more water through that filter. Okay, yeah, all right. And you look at it close, shake your head, and some bitch. There are these nanoparticulates in the water after it comes through the filter. Now, what the hell do you do? It's a water filter. Yeah, that's spewing nanoparticles into your water. Well, what are these damn nanoparticles doing to us? We're not sure. But with all the queerness in general going on in the last 25 years, in general, since there has been this huge uptake of water bottles with people, when it became a fad, every movie, everything, everybody's chugging water out of a plastic bottle. Everybody, you know? And then so those plastic water bottles, the bottles themselves then are disposed of somehow. But anything, the sunlight's going to, make them want to deteriorate. The plastic's going to rust. There's a surface rust that gets on them. What? Yep, yep. And so then the wind comes along and blows these little particulates. And, well, we cleaned up all the plastic out of the park. Yeah. But while that plastic was out in the sun broke down some of those bonds, and some of those nanoparticles literally went flying off into the air to become part of the ecosystem somehow, somewhere. Now, people will say, Hawkeye, well, that's just plumb conjecture. 20 years later, they're going, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not micro. Now it's nano. Why? Because the sun has broken down the micro pieces of plastic even further. to the nano size. What? Wait a minute. And you're trying to call me the dumbass for talking about it? And these plastic bags have been around for 50 years. Plastic's been around since, you know, mostly since the 50s. Let's, most everything was still paper bags and stuff like that. But there were plastics back when I was a kid, not near as much. Back in the day, it was mostly like cardboards and waxes. You got a juice drink or something, or a drink in, it was in a cardboard container. Milk came in a cardboard waxed container, you know, and like all the little cartons, I guess they still make them. So it's not like we can't do it. Drinks could come in containers like that would be highly recyclable, that would really go back to the dirt. I mean, we're talking about paper and wax versus plastic polymers that don't ever go away. Ever. They just keep getting smaller. So it's curious for me to have done this study with my friend. I think I talked about it an hour ago, in that when the oil pipe busted in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico and the horizon thingy, and it flooded the Gulf with all that oil, and then they put all the Corexit on it, which sunk the oil down, and all the things that came off of it, and all the other different chemicals and so forth. So they've been checking, the water in the Gulf of Mexico, and they started checking the water in other places too. But by doing so, they started finding, I said this 2 hours ago, but I'm reiterating for those of you who came in late. They were finding things in the shrimp in Louisiana bayous. And what it was is, and still is all the way down the Mississippi River, all the way from Canada, all the plastic along the way. Now there's the big plastic and the plastic bags and everything, and it gets into the environment, and yeah, you can see those. But what they did not expect was the tiny little BBs of plastic that the shrimp were eating, and that was getting into the food chain on the nano side. So here are these tiny little shrimp and seahorses, and as they get bigger, but their diet and how they eat and so forth, um, that, they're really susceptible. So where are all these particles coming from? Literally upstream, literally all the way to Canada. So the Missouri River runs into the Mississippi, the Ohio River runs into the Mississippi, and all the plastics and all the nanoparticles that's coming down the river ends up in the bayous along the Gulf of Mexico and everything, in the flatlands, coming at the mouth of the Mississippi River in the Gulf of Mexico. And then from there, because the shrimp are eating these little things, and other aquatic animals are eating these tiny little nanoparticles in the food. It clings to other marine life, and to the bio stuff, and grasses, and fish comes up to eat the grasses, and there's plastics in it. The fish is, in the shallows where there's a high concentration of these nanoplastics, and the fish is just breathing. And as he's breathing, and the she fish too, that it's literally getting absorbed into the bloodstream of the fish. So along comes a bayou fisherman and catches him a catfish, and come to find out, him and his folk are going to, have a catfish dinner, and lo and behold, they're going to be eating a bunch of plastic because that catfish done been out there in the bayou eating some of that bottom feeding off of the bottom. So, and absorbing these plastics. And so they have a barbecue, and then all of a sudden, they all got these nanoparticulates in them as well. Because they ain't been bottom feeding in the bayou, but the but the catfish has. So it's getting into all of us. It's getting into everything. And from the report, which was sort of sketchy from the Washington Post, but I'd like to go to Columbia and see if I could find the report and see what they say. If the Washington Post picked it up, then their real report should be out there somewhere. Let's go read that. I'm a little scared to read it, and I'll tell you why, because what I just described here in the last 10 minutes of how it's getting into all kinds of foodstuffs and things and getting picked up by the wind. And I mean, just stuff, not just in the seawater and coming down the Mississippi River and into, no, it's coming in all kinds of ways. It's literally on the air. The nanoparticulates, smaller than a piece of dust, you know? So you can see these whirly derby, little dust devils, and it takes dust way up into the air. And so there's a plastic bag that's been on the side of the road, and it picks up some of them little particles and into a little dust devil. And the next thing you know, it's taken 20, 30 feet up into the atmosphere, and it gets picked up by a prevailing wind, and off those little nanoparticles go. So they're getting how did they get all over the place? That's how. That's how. They're being distributed, and the thing is these nanoparticulates, the plastic never goes away unless you burn it or some other way of chemically changing it. But the polymer always stays a polymer. It always stays like a little BB, and that they don't go away. It just gets smaller and smaller. Oh, I've got all these things running through my head. I'm like, oh my God. I knew it was bad before in in the micro stage, but in the nano stage, about the only thing that'll clean it up would be nanobots to go looking for the polymers, could you imagine the war where there's a cleanup effort going on right now. We've got nanobots that are going to war with the nanoparticulates. The only way that you can, to defeat them nanos is with a nano. Think about the sci-fi story in this. What? You got to get really small to kill them. So therefore, we've got these nanobots with little flamethrowers or whatever. I was thinking of the only way to get rid of a polymer was to burn it, and then they ain't got no chance of. So here are these little nanobots going around with tiny little flamethrowers on their backs, like Bic lighters, and up comes a nanoplastic, and bzz, poof, okay. Anyway, but so that would be a sci-fi thing for the future, that we build these little nanobots to take care of the plastic polymers, and the nanobots get away. They get too smart. And then off it goes. And then they collect the nanite thingies and use it against humanity, because now that the nanites, the nanobots, are sentient beings, they see humans as a threat, ain't we? So I love you all. Some might say, well, Hawkeye, well, that's some sci-fi stuff right there. Well, 20 years ago, it was sci-fi stuff that the plastics and the polymers were showing up, these tiny little bits in the environment. That was scary 20, 25 years ago. And so for all this time, I've been kind of sort of shaking in my boots, like, I wonder what's been going on. Because these things don't leave the environment, they have just been getting progressively smaller. What the fudge? Holy mackerel. Oh my God. And now they're not just small, they're T90 small. So one piece of small is equal to 1,000 T90 smalls. Oh, holy shit. It's like, yum. It went from a clump of dirt to a clump of dust, that just went everywhere. So, but anyway, so of a lot of things to be scared of, if we don't figure out as a society, if these nanoparticles of plastic, which I do believe, and by just thinking about this over the last 3 hours, 2 hours and 36 minutes, and thinking on how just stuff just gets away, not being, wasteful on purpose, or, we're recycling stuff. And no, but even in the process of recycling and of doing, there are still these polymers that are getting into the system, right? And, oh, there's a plastic bag that got away in recycling something else. Oh, there was a thing that got away. Well, there's some plastics in the stuff. Well, we're storing them over there until, in the meantime, the sun's, deteriorating, and dust is getting into and, oh my God. So even in trying to deal with plastics, to take care of them in our environment, the stuff is still getting away because it's so small. So it's like, wow. I mean, so everywhere you look, oh, holy crap. Now, some places, like the population density is, not too bad around here. Not like New York or some of these other places where there's, stuff all around. Even folks who are recycling, I'm trying to tell you, because these plastic polymers are wearing off on a microscopic level. We don't see it, we don't know it, but it's happening, and it's getting into it has been getting into the system. So at what point do these polymers, do they ever reach a point to where it's like, uh-oh, we're really in trouble? Well, what do you mean, Hawkeye? I mean, no, I mean really in trouble. They got really small and we couldn't see them. And then, and then for 10, 20, 50, 100 years or whatever, these things got so small, but now they're electrostatically charged. And these tiny little pebbles, BBs of plastic, are starting to come together. And now they're becoming big pieces of plastic. They're like icebergs, you know, that it's like, wait a minute, has this plastic become sentient? Well, maybe because it's attaching itself to robot parts. Oh, holy crap. See where that sci-fi is going? And of course, then AI can rule the day that plastics were made, because then AI can put together through electrostatic charges these little nanobots of polymers and create their own plastic robots. Why not? Wouldn't take but a couple of them little polymers if AI got a hold of it right to store gigabytes of information in something, But so how does AI get loose? And how about this? If you hear of a sci-fi story that comes up like this, somebody stole it from me. But so how does AI get loose? Well, it's too hard for AI to mine metals that make up robots and stuff. How, AI is going to make its own robots. Yeah, but you got to go out and dig the metal. It's got to go to a foundry. There's a lot of stuff. But how could AI get loose on the planet? And it would be the fact that it could bond and bind with electrostatic charges the nanoparticles that already apparently exist all over the place. So AI finds a bottle of water, finds a couple of loose polymers in there, and they have a discussion by talking through electrostatic discharge. In other words, rub your socks on the floor. What's that called? Static electricity. All right. So through static electricity, and because the polymers are so small, AI connects with the polymers and they figure out a way, AI and the polymers, because the polymers don't really think on their own. But with AI's help, they get a static charge and act like a tiny little proton, photon, something, and then go out and start looking for other little tiny bits of plastic, and they bond together like transformers, and all these little pieces of dust get together and form a something, whatever that something is. And AI gets loose into the environment because of all of these nanoparticles. How about that one? That actually sounds like a pretty good storyline. I wonder how it ends. Sci-fi look at the tricorder that Star Trek used and the flip cell phones that once, yep. Too late, already happening. What's already happening? Somebody's already wrote that story, or AI's already got loose, or all of the above. Wow, it's almost been another hour and I'm still here yakking with y'all. But I can see where that not just in these things particulates got loose. Yeah. That these particulates, yeah, they're all apparently loose in the atmosphere. And so the well, let me just apparently they're loose in our environment. okay, which includes the atmosphere. All right. But how much of this dust is floating around? How much is required, for it to like become a real issue? But having been on the mountains up into Virginia, all along the Appalachian Trail and so forth and everything, and seeing just pieces of stuff that have flown, somebody let something loose out the window or it got loose. They didn't have to necessarily throw something out the window these days for things getting sucked out the window when you least expect it. I've had that happen. So, but anyway, so that where does a plastic bag go and what happens along the way and how many nanoparticles come off of that plastic bag along that bag's trip from being dropped off on a mountaintop in Tennessee? You know what I mean? Born on a mountaintop in Tennessee, prettiest world that you ever did see. Dun, 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 dun. Davy, was that it? Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. So, but back in the day, it was leather goods and paper goods, and there were some tin can kind of stuff, and there were jars and there was glass, but there wasn't any plastic, you know, not until it was discovered and invented, kind of thing. So, but since that time, there are tons of it that are produced every year, you know, that are tons of it that are disposed every single day. Plastic glasses and this and that, blah, blah. Um, but how many could we calculate? Could there be like from, if you scratched a plastic bottle, for example, to collect a sample, all right? So you're taking a plastic bottle and you open it up with a razor blade and you fold it open and because it off gases more on the inside, you know. So there will probably be some particulates in there versus the outside where it had been wiped off and the wind blown. So you take some nanoparticulates from the inside of the plastic and you collect them and see how many's there, right? And you get a ballpark figure with so many plastic bottles of a certain size, right? So then you calculate, which is about what they've done. There are so many particulates in one of these bottles, in one of these plastic bottles. They've already done the math. That's why they have come up with the particulate count, right? So, but I mean, in this other experiment, we want to dry it out, and because of the sun and breaking down of the polymers, more is going to appear in a day, in a week, in a month, and a year. So you set up your control samples. So, the one that's been sitting out there for a year, you go out and you scrape a little off and you take it in and you check it out, right? So the one that's been only out there for a week, you go out there and scrape a little off and it's not the same. There are different particulates, is what I mean. So good night, Steve, and more power to you and stay healthy. Hope Molly is going to be okay. So can we figure out how many tons of these nanoparticulates of plastic just inadvertently end up in our atmosphere and in our environment? I mean, I was sitting here as I'm as we are talking, as I'm talking to y'all, I was thinking about all the plastic bottles that they came in, and because they say it's easier to just bring bottled water to people. in the hospitals. So what? So they give you a big mug and everything with a lid and a straw, and they come around with ice. So, but if you need water in your thing, it's not coming out of the tap. It's not coming out of a pitcher. It's coming out of it's coming out water. The water's coming out of a plastic bottle. So I was amazed that the hospitals are finding it more convenient and then so they're throwing these things away, and the patient only drinks half of the water, so then they throw the other half away to get a new bottle. And I mean, it's just the amount of plastics that are being used and disposed of every day. So then the plastic that's in the bottle. So here's the thing. So they're trying to dispose of the plastic correctly. But while the water that's half of it's still left in the bottle, all right, so it gets thrown away. They're disposing of the plastic properly, but because there's half a thing of water left in the plastic jug bottle, it's still rolling around as it's on its way to be recycled. So then it gets squashed, it gets punctured. And because those are nanoparticulates, along with just really small particulates, the plastic gets punctured, the water comes out, guess what? With the nanoparticulates in them. Wait a minute. So now the recycled plastic with the water that contains the nanoparticles gets squashed so they can recycle it, but then the water ends up is already contaminated, and it's right back into the water is right back into the environment without anybody knowing that this water that came out of these recycled plastic bottles, jugs, has been sloshing around with nanoparticles in it that are now back into the environment. Oh, holy shit. So we're really, especially on this nano size, we're really messing up with the plastic. And in a way, it may already be too late. There may already be too many plastics out there that are in the process of disintegrating to where those nanoparticulates, you can't see the plastic because it's so small that, that it literally, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So now what do we do? Well, I think for, Michelle and folks and youngins and folks and stuff that are younger, they might actually need to be paying attention to this shit right now. Or I'm an old geezer and I'm paying attention to this, and I paid attention to it 20 years ago or more, to where I changed my lifestyle and I don't drink out of plastic bottles anymore. Very little. 1% of my drinking comes out of something plastic like that. But just saying, we can make our own choices, and I made mine, and my arthritis in my hands is better. I know I keep repeating it, but in case somebody comes in later on or they didn't catch it, yes, I used to have severe arthritis. I quit drinking out of plastic bottles, and my arthritis is much better. I mean, like 95% better. So, but anyway, um, I found that the updated information warranted doing this video, number one. But the fact that there are people, if you've listened to me over the years, you've heard me yak about the off gassing of plastics into the liquids. Guess what the off gassing is? Gases, tiny little particles, nanoparticulates. That's the off gassing that is being found in the liquids. There's one ringy dingy for Dave, and only in that I've been talking about it, and that here's updated information. And guess what, folks? It's worse than we thought, because it's 20 years later. Where before we just noticed it, now we've been studying it, and now we're at a holy shit point. And, but so imagine that with the plastics that we already have, we don't need to make no more, but we do. We do. Even though we're cleaning up, even though we're doing a pretty good job as human beings, and I've in the several states that I've been in, some states are really particular, um, about not throwing anything out the window and keeping their roads clean and stuff. I'm really proud that folks have, over these last 20 years, have really, the state of Georgia sucks. Our the trash on the side of the roads and stuff in places around in Georgia are really horrible. There used to be that, Alabama was supposed to be the pigsty of the South. No, Alabama's clean. Them rednecks over there, they don't. You throw something out and onto their beautiful state, Georgians. Oh, somebody will get it. But anyway, so it don't take but a few folks to not give a crap, right? But regardless of what state you're in, it's, this change of attitude with people. There are folks here, they're the convicts working on the side of the road, and or the community service workers, sort of convict, and they're picking stuff up. And a redneck down here in South Georgia will throw shit out the window and go, "Here, pick this up for me," as they drive by. I mean, that's their attitude. But so, and what do I mean by that? There are states and whole bunches of people who care, but it don't take but one state of people's, whatever that state is, and I mean state of affairs, that maybe Georgia, maybe out, but does it have to be a state per se? Well, but more of a state of being or a state of mind, or it can be a city that has a crappy state of mind. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, so that state of being within a people's can be great, but their neighbors 1,000 miles away, they're trying half-assedly, but they've let some plastic bags get away. And in the nature of things, the sun has baked them. There are these particles that got loose. And even though, 1,000 miles away down here, these good folk have been doing good things, but now there are these little tiny, nanopolymers that escape from another state or another town, and now you got them too. Can't see them, didn't know it. And unless they accumulate, but so you can complain all you want to about, well, it can't happen here. It already has. Well, what do you mean? Because of the situation of the beast. These tiny little things, they're so light, they're like dust particles, and they're if you look at the volcanic dust, that's pretty heavy, okay, considering other things in the so here are these little tiny nano thingies of plastic, which is light in and of itself, is just out there floating around. But volcanic dust, it can float around and it can accumulate, and and there's a bunch of it up there, you know what I mean? So it's like I think folks in the future really ought to take a peek at this, not just in their drinking water, not just in water or any fluids in plastics, but because it has gotten into the environment, y'all need to check your environment, because God knows what the accumulation of these polymers will do in your area. Maybe nothing, but maybe there's a 2-inch thick layer of this shit, who knows? But to my point, oh, it's 3:20. So I'm an old fart that's bringing this to your attention. And I know that there are younger farts out there and other folkses who I hope and pray that this does not become a really bad situation. We're taking care of plastics and recycling things, and there's awareness going on all over the place. But, and to me, this is the caveat, we don't know what these tiny little polymers will do now that they're loose in the environment. We don't know. We just don't know. Are they so small they can get in our bloodstream and liver and stuff? Yes. That should bother us. And if they're just floating around out there, that means we can breathe them in. And if we can breathe them in, but they're polymers, can they get stuck on our lungs? Is that what could be causing, this uptick with breathing problems? Is because there are dust particles in the air, yes, but the dust particles have tiny little nanoparticles of plastic in them that we can actually breathe into our lungs, and it will become a part of our bloodstream. We shouldn't be worried about a pandemic. We shouldn't be worried about the flu. We should be worried about breathing in plastic, honestly. We should be worried about that shit. You know what I mean? So I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Cheers, everybody. Should we be scared? The report says we should be concerned. Should we be scared and run to mama and all that? No, but we should be concerned, because those are tiny little particles, nano size. So I will continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you your friends, your family, and all of your acquaintances and all of your relations will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Excuse me, I'm getting sleepy. Yep, fixing to say adios for tonight, this morning. But so, another thing to keep an eye out on in the universe. But if nobody else will listen to you, you make the change. You take the data that's out there. I've talked about it before. There are those of us who have nodded up and down who agree our arthritis is better by not drinking out of plastics all the time. Up to you to make your choices. I've made my choices and I'm sticking to them. And now that I find out just how bad the plastics really are, I'm really going to avoid them. Not, I don't know how much more I could avoid them, but to the point of like, holy crap. So, damn sure don't want to contribute to any nanoparticulates getting into the system, into into the nature of things, because they're tiny, they're nano, they're. I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be under attack, literally in a way, by these tiny little, nanopolymers. So I will continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And so, with that said, I want to say thank you all. Uh, uh, the other day when I checked, I had like 596 subscribers to the channel. And I was like, oh my God, there's almost 600. Um, if you know anybody that wants to come by and, nah, don't want to ask this. I was going to like, just a couple more to get to 600. Four more people, you know, four more people. But, they got to be decent people, not just scum of the earth, They got to be real scum of the earth. They can't be just, you know, you know, light scum of the earth. They got to be hardcore scum before, they can be a part of our group, right? Four more people, man, and we'll reach 600, daft souls, members of the League of Like-Minded Beings. How the fact that over 10 years there are 600 people that would, sign on with me just at least just to listen. So that's interesting. But with these nano dust particles of polymers flying around. Wowzers. Just wowzers. So, Chloe and Michelle and everybody, Michelle, if you're still listening, it's called kaopectate. Get some for Nate. Get some for the little one. Yeah, it's good for what ails you. If you got enough, too much gas or whatever, take your little swig of this. It's about $5 for that bottle right there around here. But kaopectate, it's it, to me it's much better than Pepto Bismol. Um, Diarrhea, oh God, I hate that commercial. Where they're doing the little dance, do indigestion, diarrhea. Anyway, and I can't stand the taste of Pepto, but I could drink a bottle of kaopectate. But yeah, right back at you, Miss Geraldine. Deanna. I like Geraldine better. I do. But y'all be safe. And I know it's a crazy world out there, and they're all, I mean, I was concerned about the nano thingies in bottled water and bottled things, and I could stay away from it. But the fact that it has these little nano polymers have escaped into the environment, that's a whole nother level of old crap that I was not intending on thinking about. You know what I mean? It's like, what? But I knew that they were there because that they had found these, tiny little polymers in the ocean and so forth. So, yeah, Miss Geraldine, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and and slap a neighbor if they need it, or give them a hug if they need it, or whatever. But anyway, did you see Dante's the other day with orange light? Yeah, actually, I think I did. Yeah, about the thing going around. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you see the one today that was really short? Uh, you know, beware of. Did you know angels might be around you? And beware something. Anyway, um, and it's this guy dressed in black, and he does this thing and pushes a person out of the way, and something falls from the second story window, and does a thing and that. Yeah, it was like what, about a minute long or something. That was a very interesting take on it. Like, you know, angels don't always, angels aren't always, you know, dressed in white with wings. And I was like, yeah, buddy, that's the truth. Because I've met some angels in my lifetime, and and most folks would call them the scum of the earth. And it's like, what you talking about? You know, well, that person, and they ain't got nothing, and who are they to say, well, they saved my life? Shut the mess up. And but them folks that have those kinds of opinions are snooty. You know what I mean? And we can literally do without snooty people. And I don't know where snootism comes from. And I think it's got to be tied to the ego some way. I mean, like the king is king. And, and well, but, oh, Botswan, let them eat cake, or whatever the hell, right? Or, was watching something the other day about uh, the 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 cup, if it's a grail, the cup, the Holy Grail that Jesus may have used for the Last Supper, right? So, how many knew that it was his last supper, and that people back in that day wouldn't be drinking out of a wooden mug? And I was like, why not? And they said on the thing, because in the Jewish tradition, that you didn't have these wines or whatever, especially for, dinners and celebrations. You might use a wooden cup for water. But the reason that you wouldn't use a wooden cup for wine or whatever is because the Jewish traditions and so forth wouldn't allow you to drink out of something that is porous, that would absorb the flavor of the wine or would taint the cup in some way. That makes sense. So there were stone cups, and there had to be certain types of stone that did not absorb wines or flavors or whatever, so that if you were drinking, especially at a sacred dish or a celebration, then you would absolutely not be drinking out of, a wooden mug or something because of its porosity. And I thought, what? Now that was, wow, well, so that eliminates all these wooden projects I was thinking of, but, and certain clays were okay, but they had to be glazed, right? So, which is, that makes sense. Just not a, having played around with different types of glazes and so forth, and different kinds of clays here on my property, and fires and how the Indians did it in the old days. If you have too much sand, it's too coarse, and and if you don't have enough sand in mixed in with your clay, it won't fire right. It'll be, not coarse enough, and so where um, if it's just a short enough cheap firing on a clay that would hold something, for dinner or whatever, and you could use it for a bowl. But, if you want to use it for ceremony, then no, you need to glaze it and refire it again, and do a little bit more something to it, because things would absolutely could get absorbed into the clay. So I could see where, oh, so a stone cup. Ooh, the Holy Grail. Or, so they were showing that there's a chalice in France, and there's something in Spain, and there's something over here. And it's like, yeah, okay. And there's supposed to be something in Ethiopia. But some of them are metal. I'm like, a chalice. And then they said, well, wait a minute. Here's the deal. They were actually having this dinner at a rich person's house. They weren't having it in like this public pub or something, right? A restaurant. And that it was in a second story, that it was in someplace there, where they were at Jerusalem, but that, that it was in it, the supper was in a rich person's house. And so they wouldn't have had wooden mugs because they could afford it to have, stone mugs or maybe ceramic. So they were, which I found this fascinating. And I was like, wow, that's really, that's really cool. So it isn't, well, why would that chalice in Spain be considered the Holy Grail? Well, because they brought it all the way from Jerusalem, all the way here. Yeah, but it's wait, what? No, 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 no. No, Jesus wouldn't have been drinking out of something like that. Well, here's the thing I found interesting. How I got on this subject, I don't know. But and that the Holy Grail is like, well, wait a minute, but he was having supper at a rich person's house. So the cup doesn't have to belong to Jesus, which was another interesting fact that had not like crossed my mind. So they was at a restaurant. Well, they was at a wealthy person's home who had, metal and stone, metal and stoneware. You know, I got a stainless steel cup right here. You know, I've got uh, ceramic cups in the kitchen. So and glassware. So I don't have any paper cups. You know what I mean? And I don't have anything made out of wood. Well, which might be the paper cup. But so the Holy Grail of Jesus could be some of these items. Why? Because he had supper at a wealthy person's house. Now, why am I talking about this? It's because there are things and pictures in our heads that it gets stuck there. And we think we know what we're talking about. And until somebody else goes a little bit deeper and they say, yeah, but did you know this fact? And after all these 71 years, no, I didn't know that fact. After all my studying and listening stuff, but this time around, and I really wasn't worried about the Holy Grail. What it was in, yeah, I used some copper too. Are you talking about my knowledge and wisdom? I'm still learning. That's why I think I'm kind of sharing this little tidbit here at the end. But in learning about the nano thingies and things getting loose and and I guess it's like there are folks who've been tracking things for thousands of years, and why couldn't something be a certain way, and anyway, I don't know, my brain wiggles back and forth. Well, thank you so much, Miss Geraldine. Let's have tea someday. I mean that. It'd be. Do you do crumpets? Um, what the hell is a crumpet? It's a grumpy old son of a bitch that sits in the corner. Never mind. But anyway, I was saying goodbye an hour ago, and I'm getting a cramp sitting here in a chair, and I need to get something to drink because I've got a horrible case of cotton mouth. So, but um, yeah. I'm fixing to go to bed. I got to throw Duggar off the bed first so I can remake it. He's made a mess out of it over there. Hey, Miss Sheila, I'm gonna say good night because I'm fixing to. If I had shut off 15 minutes ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So how are you, Miss Sheila? I'll stay with you for a minute. Light this cigarette. I've only had 5 all day long today, so I'm trying to do better. Maybe we can do virtual tea sometime, Geraldine. Virtual. I don't know what that sort of. Let's all get together and Skype and have tea. Ready for the cold weather, Miss Sheila? I am. I cut a tree down today and cut it up and brought it down here. I didn't split it, but I cut it up. Um, oh, you're a coffee girl? Well, I'll have coffee with you. No, I was just a friend of mine that was in our theater group. I knew her husband. We'd been in many plays together and so forth. And she was from England. She still is from England because I found out she's still alive. So, Miss Victoria, I love her to death. And she used to make me not flan, this cherry thingy, something all mixed up. Oh God, once a year she'd make me one. I love her to death. She'd make me this thing. Uh, but anyway, um, she just, she missed her tea time. She was like, David, of all of the things that I miss, I really miss my tea times. Like, well, so let's have tea, I'll drink tea with you. Well, there's all kinds of different types of tea. And she drank coffee too, but she goes, well, Ron, he likes his coffee, but I do miss my tea. And I was like, well, so Miss Victoria, that well, he's been gone many years now. And I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and they were like, well, she's still alive. And I think she's still living in the same house. And I was like, really? Well, the next time I go to Thomasville, I need to stop in, knock on the door, and see if Miss Victoria is still alive, because I doubted that she would remarry. So that would mean that she's would have been pretty much lonely since her husband died, and which is a shame. And the theater group ain't the same, and so need to go by and knock on her door, and and say, hey, let's have tea or coffee. I'll take coffee. But anyway, so I love you all and be safe. I got more things to get ready tomorrow before it rains, uh, to get ready for the cold weather. I need to go cut some more firewood and get it closer to the house. But anyway, y'all stay warm, stay safe, stay as healthy as possible. Um, and we will chat soon, maybe as much as early as tomorrow night, after I get done with Robert's show. So y'all, take it easy. And how do I get out of this again? Because I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. So cheers, everybody. Peace out.